Three Tales of My Father's Dragon. We're on the last book, The Dragons of Blueland, chapters 2 and 3. Mr. and Mrs. Wagonwheel, chapter 2. But someone had seen the dragon. At least he was sure he had seen something blue and yellow and gold galloping down the road. It was Mr. Wagonwheel, the farmer living in the yellow farmhouse, who had just been closing his window as the dragon ran past. "What's that galloping noise?" asked Mrs. Wagonwheel, sitting up in bed. "A large blue monster just ran by, and after breakfast I'm going to find out all about it," yelled Mr. Wagonwheel, jumping into his clothes and rushing off to put the cows in the barn for milking. Mrs. Wagonwheel, meanwhile, made pancakes and coffee, but forgot to boil the eggs. She was horribly upset at the thought of a monster rushing past her house at 5 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Wagonwheel hurried through the milking, let the cows into the pasture, and dashed back to the kitchen. He was anxious to eat and be off after the blue demon, as he had decided to call whatever it was. He swallowed a pancake whole and banged 2 eggs on the side of his cup. Splop! Raw eggs fell all over the table, and Mr. Wagonwheel and Mrs. Wagonwheel had forgotten to boil the eggs, of course. "Martha, what's the matter with you?" yelled Mr. Wagonwheel. "Oh, I'm sorry," said poor Mrs. Wagonwheel. "I'm so upset about the horrible monster. I didn't know what. I don't know what I'm doing." And she nervously slipped a pancake instead of her handkerchief into her apron pocket. "Well, boil more eggs," roared Mr. Wagonwheel, going to the sink to wash off his face and hands and shirt and overalls. Now, Mr. Wagonwheel liked his eggs hard, very hard, and as he waited for them to get very hard, it began to rain. It was only a drizzly rain, but enough to wash away the dragon's footprints in the dusty road. "Drat it!" thundered Mr. Wagonwheel, looking out the window. "It's raining!" "I thought we needed rain, dear," said Mrs. Wagonwheel. "We do, but why can't it wait until I capture the blue demon? Now maybe I'll never find him." "Well, it's just as well," said Mrs. Wagonwheel, carefully putting a spoonful of salt in her coffee. "Well, I can see you have no spirit of adventure," grumped Mr. Wagonwheel, peeling his at last ready very hard eggs. He picked up his rifle, a strong rope, and put on his raincoat and boots. "I'm off," he yelled, and slammed the door. "He'll never come back," thought Mrs. Wagonwheel, as she quietly sat down to cry. Mr. Wagonwheel ran down the road, pouncing on bushes, peering behind trees, and examining roadside ditches, yelling all the while, "Coming, ready or not!" He made such a racket that the cows heard him in plenty of time. They huddled around the big culvert where the baby dragon was hiding and pretended to be busy drinking water, for they had found the sleeping dragon while Mr. Wagonwheel was eating his very hard eggs. "Wake up," they had said, "and tell us what you are and what you're doing in our culvert." The dragon woke up in a start and then smiled at the friendly cows. "I'm a baby dragon," he explained, "and I'm on my way home to the great high mountains of Blueland." "What are you doing in our culvert?" asked the cows. I'm hiding, you see. Most people think there are no dragons left, and if I should be captured, I'd surely end up in a zoo or a circus and never get home again." "Shh," said another cow. "I think I hear Mr. Wagonwheel now. All through milking time he was muttering about catching a blue demon. He must have meant you." It was then that the cows huddled around the opening into the culvert, and the dragon crouched down on his stomach in the water. "The culvert!" yelled Mr. Wagonwheel, brandishing his rifle. "An excellent hiding place for a blue demon!" And he started down the bank on the other side of the road. "It's all over now," thought the dragon, who could tell where the farmer was from the noise he was making. But just then Mr. Wagonwheel looked across the road at his peaceful cows and thought, "My cows would be in a panic if the demon were hiding here." He turned back up the bank and ran down the road, beating the bushes and peering behind trees. The cows gazed nearby all day long. The cows grazed nearby all day long, talking to the dragon and telling him when it was safe to come out of the culvert. Toward evening, they heard Mr. Wagonwheel stamping back along the road, yelling, "Hoopla, all of you in the barn!" And they wandered off. They quietly warned the dragon, "Leave just as soon as he goes to the barn. It's just like him to be out looking for you by flashlight after supper." And they were right. Long after the dragon had flown far beyond the yellow farmhouse and culvert, Mr. Wagonwheel was shooting into bushes. Mrs. Wagonwheel was in bed with a case of the nerves. Chapter 3, The Men on the Slopes. It's a lovely night for flying, thought the dragon as he hurried toward the north, urged on by cool, brisk winds. The rain had stopped long ago, and a crescent moon shone palely. Looking down, he could see the outline of Seaweed Bay, and then a point of land called Due East Lookout. At this point, he must turn and fly directly westward over Seaweed City, across Spiky Mountain Range and over Awful Desert to reach the Blue Mountains in the heart of the desert. Many people had tried to cross the desert and climb these mountains, but there was no water and treacherous sandstorms raged all year round, making travel almost impossible. So far, no man had succeeded. "It won't be long now," sang the baby dragon as he passed over Seaweed City, over the coastal Spiky Mountain Range, and then started over Awful Desert beyond. What a lovely night, he thought again, and then all of a sudden he realized how clear it was over the desert. Where are the sandstorms? Yes, where are the sandstorms? A sick feeling came over him. In weather like this, a man might be able to cross the desert into Blueland, might see one of the dragon family, and learn the dragon's secret that dragons still live in Blueland. Faster and faster he flew, and way up ahead he saw a tiny light where the mountains rose straight up out of the desert. "Men," thought the dragon, "if only I'm in time to warn my family." Onward he sped until he could see that the light was the blaze of a campfire on the Rocky Mountain slope. He counted 4 or 5 men sitting around the campfire. "I better find out what they're planning to do, so I'll know how to save my family," thought the dragon, circling down and landing below the men. He carefully picked his way through the huge rocks on the slope and hid close enough to hear what the men were saying. "If Frank and Howard and the rest don't find water soon, we're sunk. We'll have to get back pretty quick. And what if the weather changes? After all, this is the first time, so far as anybody knows, that the weather has ever been clear over the desert. And I don't trust it to last very long." "Me neither," said another voice. Just then they heard a shout farther up the slope, and a man came running down towards the fire. "Did you find water?" they asked him. "Water, loads of it. The mountains form a circle, and the stream from the mountain flowed towards the center to make a tremendous lake. But that's not all we found." "You mean you found evidence that the great dragon of Blueland actually did exist at one time?" "Evidence?" said the man who had run down the slope. "Evidence? Why, we've got 15 of the most beautiful dragons you ever dreamed of trapped in a cave that seems to have only one entrance. The rest of the men are guarding it." "15 trapped in the cave?" moaned the baby dragon. "Why, that's my whole family, my 6 sisters, 7 brothers, and my dear gigantic mother and father. I'm the only one left to save them. But why didn't they fly away?" He listened to the men again. "How do you know you have 15 in a cave?" "We took them by surprise. They were asleep at the entrance, and when they saw us, they rushed inside. What a sight!" 15 dragons, one of the men whistled. What did they look like?" "They went so fast it's hard to see, but there was one huge blue one, one big yellow one, about 5 smaller green ones, and the rest were blue and yellow. They all had red horns and feet and gold-colored wings." "I can't wait," said one of the men. Why, every zoo in the country will want one. Oh no, groaned the horrified baby dragon, hiding behind the rocks. Alright, that was chapters 2 and 3 of the Dragons of Blueland. Hope you enjoyed it.